We learned a lot this weekend. Some good, some bad, some ugly, and Josh Hader's 100th career save. We're going to recap it all on Locked On Brewers.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome in. Happy Monday, everybody. I am Dominic Cotroneo. Thanks for making Locked On Brewers your first listen of the day. Today's episode is brought to you by BetOnline. BetOnline has more odds, more props, and more lines than ever before. Get started today at betonline.net. I am the statistician for Bally Sports Wisconsin, almost at every single game this season there in the TV booth, and bringing you your only daily podcast dedicated to the Milwaukee Brewers. If you haven't already, go ahead and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Make sure this arrives in your inbox first thing in the morning and make us your first listen every day. And go ahead and subscribe to us on YouTube as well. The video version of all of our podcasts is uploaded there on YouTube as well. Let's talk about this. We learned a lot this weekend, to say the least. The Brewers are now 5-5. They split the weekend. They go 2-2 in the 4-game set against the Cardinals. We learned a lot this weekend. Some good and some bad. But the number one thing I learned this weekend, and this is a guarantee for me, this division is going to come down to the final week of the season. There is not a doubt in my mind. And I know last year it technically came down to the last week of the season, but it really didn't. You know, I mean, the division was wrapped up until the Cardinals went on that insane winning streak, of course, but the division was virtually wrapped up. I don't think that's going to happen. I don't think we're going to see a runaway team this season, and here's why. The Cardinals are really, really good, okay? They are really, really, really good. And the Brewers caught Paul Goldschmidt at a good time, man. He went 1 for 16 this weekend. You're not going to get that all season long from Paul Goldschmidt. Nolan Arenado, he showed up. Nolan Arenado's ready to play. He went 6 for 14 this weekend. He hit a homer, 2 doubles, 4 walks. Look, they're a very, very good team. But is their starting pitching enough? And on the flip side, it's the exact opposite worry for the Brewers. Granted, the pitching's off to a slow start, but you know the starting pitching is going to turn around. Do they have enough offense to keep up with the Cardinals? And don't forget about the Cubs, because, look, they've already won a series against the Brewers, and they continue to play well. But all three of these teams, you figure, will be active at the trade deadline. That's the number one thing that I've learned this weekend. I believe this division is going to come down to the last 3 games of the season. And it's really going to be important to win this division, because I don't know if the Central is deep enough to have a wild card team come out of it. What I mean by that is the only team, you got the Pirates and the Reds, obviously, but the Pirates are clearly a little bit better. They probably don't have enough pitching. The Reds are a lot, but if you run into Hunter Green for a series, if Nick Lodolo continues to get better, they still got Luis Castillo coming back. They still got enough pitching to hang on. They don't have any bullpen at all. But what I'm saying is, with the West, the Diamondbacks are not very good. The Rockies are kind of stuck in between. And then you look out in the East, that's crazy. I mean, the Nationals are not very good, but you've got the Phillies. The Marlins are stuck as well, but they've got good pitching with Alcantara. They got Luzardo. I don't see a chance for a wild card to come out of the Central as of now, personally, because the Braves and the Mets seem like they'll be the class of the East, and the Phillies are going to hang around with that crazy offense. And you look out to the West, the Padres and the Giants are certainly going to be right there for second place, fighting with the Dodgers, who are probably going to run away with that division. So my point is, winning the division is probably going to be your only way in for the NL Central this year. And it may be the 3 seed, who knows? But the Cardinals are really good, and we learned a lot this weekend. Let's quickly recap the weekend. We're going to get into your mailbag questions. We're also just going to talk about the negative and the positive 10 games in. First and foremost, last time we chatted was Friday. Brewers had just come off a home opener win, 5-1. Vibes were good. Everyone was happy. And then they were quickly shot down on Friday. A 10-1 loss. Never really had a chance. I mean, Freddy Peralta got off to the worst of starts. He got the first 2 outs on just 4 pitches. And then over the next 5 outs, there were 6 runs on the board. It really escalated on him quickly. And the Cardinals, coming into this weekend in the National League, they led the league in home runs, and they also had the fewest strikeouts. A pretty darn good combination. And they still have the fewest strikeouts. Granted, they've had 2 games postponed. I know that, but strikeout rate is still pretty darn good. So they're a team that can't hit for power, can't hit for extra bases, and they're also going to make you work for it. They don't necessarily draw a ton of walks. They just don't strike out. And they really, really tested Brewers pitchers that have been off to a slow start so far this season. So a 10-1 loss on Friday. Wasn't great. Not many highlights from that one. Then on Saturday, the Brewers pitched well enough to win that game, but lose by a final of 2-1. Adrian Hauser pitched well enough. He gets a tough luck loss. Only 5 hits for the Brewers offense on Saturday. They only had 6 hits on Friday, so they have 11 hits and 2 runs to show over an 18-inning stretch there on Friday and Saturday. They needed to show up yesterday in a big way. They needed to put a punch in the mouth. They needed to throw the first punch. They needed to get up off the deck. And they did. First inning, 3 runs on the board. First 5 batters all provided something. Some walks, a hit by pitch, a sac fly from McCutchen, the double by Tellez. Things were looking great. It was a great start. A 3-0 lead after 1. Aaron Ashby got out of a jam in the top of the first inning, and he started to find his groove and get things going. And then he made his only mistake, really, of the day. He did walk a career-high 4 batters, but the inning extended in the third for Albert Pujols, and he caught a hanging slider and sent it 426 feet away. That was a blast by Albert Pujols, his 681st career home run, and his 43rd career homer against the Brewers. Coming up after the break, I'm going to answer this trivia question that I want to have for you. So think to yourself, you don't have to tweet me or anything, but think to yourself, who do you think has the most home runs as a Brewer opponent all time for their career? And a hint, Albert Pujols is now 3rd with 43. So think to yourself, I'm going to give it a few minutes before I reveal the answer to that question. Who has the most career home runs as an opponent to the Brewers? Think about it. So yesterday, it's 3-3 game through 3 innings, and the Brewers, the offense had opportunities. They weren't great with runners in scoring position, but we'll get to that a little bit later. They had a clutch hit from Tyrone Taylor, and with the bases loaded and only 1 out in the 4th inning, they only managed to scrape across 1 run. That was a bases-loaded walk by Willy Adames. He drew 2 walks, scored a 1, drove in a run, but that was all they got out of that 4th inning bases-loaded opportunity. So they're up 4-3. Heading into the 5th, heading into the 6th, still nothing doing. They couldn't add on. And then in the 7th inning, Brad Boxberger, you get the A bullpen going, a 1-2-3 top of the 7th. Time to get some insurance runs as Verhagen comes in for the Cardinals. Drew Verhagen, who pitched earlier in the weekend as well. A leadoff walk, and that's a hitting coach's best friend, a leadoff walk to Christian Yelich. And then a bloop infield single by Andrew McCutchen. It puts runners on 2nd and 3rd after a throwing error as well. Rowdy popped out. Hira struck out. So now you're thinking, oh man, 2nd and 3rd and 2 outs and not able to push across an insurance run. They intentionally walk Omar Narvaez, a lefty, to face a right-on-right with Tyrone Taylor, and they made him pay. I got to find the stat of intentionally walking a guy just for a split, just to go right-on-right. There was no specific history that Tyrone was such a terrible hitter against this guy. There was no specific history of that Verhagen is that lethal against right-handed hitters. There's got to be something out there that, you're going to intentionally walk 2 pitch to me? It seems like almost every time it works out. So Tyrone Taylor hits a clutch 2-run double down the left field line, which turned out to be the most important hit of the game. And I tweeted this saying, it might have been the most important hit of April. Come by the end of this month, we might look back on that swing. It could be the difference of this being a series win for the Cardinals, 3-1, the Brewers being 4-6, and a game that you're going to circle and like, let that one get away. Or now you're 5-5, feeling a little bit better about a split against a very good team. So Tyrone gets 2 key insurance runs to make it a 6-3 game. And then the bottom of the 8th happened. And we're going to get into Devin Williams' struggles here in a little bit, but Devin Williams allowed 3 walks, 2 runs, 2 hits, 2 strikeouts. And it took Trevor Gott coming in to slam the door to face 1 batter. He only threw 5 pitches, but he got the job done against Dylan Carlson, who also had an ice-cold weekend. Trevor Gott escapes the jam without giving up the lead, and then Josh Hader gets his 100th career save in the 9th, a 1-2-3 frame, exactly what this pitching staff wanted to see after everything that Devin has gone through his last couple of outings. That's the weekend. 2-2 against the Cardinals. Certainly going to be a great race this entire year. The Brewers do not see the Cardinals again until May 26th in St. Louis. So a 4-game weekend series at Busch. It'll be 26th to the 29th. That'll be a huge 10-game gut check road trip, by the way, because before that, the Brewers will be going to San Diego, then they go to St. Louis, and then they go to Chicago, face the Cubs. So that's going to be a huge 10-game series, 10-game road trip looking ahead coming up in late May. So keep that circled on your calendar. Let's talk about some stuff. Before we do that, tell you about our presenting sponsor once again, BetOnline. Their number one source for all your betting stats and info. They've got props, they got lines, they got odds, they got futures on there, they've got NBA basketball stuff on there, they got NHL playoff stuff up there. They've got it all. They got everything you need, and of course, Major League Baseball. I like to click around and just see, just be aware. I'm not really a betting guy myself, but I like watching SVP's Bad Beats segment on Mondays, on SportsCenter. So I like to be aware of, that might have been significant to some. But BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information. You can head to their website today, or you can use your phone at betonline.net. BetOnline is where the game starts. The answer to the trivia question, who has the most career home runs against the Brewers as an opponent? So, as we mentioned, Albert Pujols is number 3. Sammy Sosa is number 2. He hit 44, so now Albert is 1 back. And number 1, Reggie Jackson, 62 career home runs against the Brewers. It's pretty darn good. He's in the Hall of Fame. That's the answer to your trivia question. Hope you had fun with that. Okay, Devin Williams. I am not a pitching coach. I am not a doctor. I am not a genius. I don't know. Devin Williams is off to a pretty bad start. But there's still signs of encouragement from this. Let me get into it. First and foremost, he's still getting swings and misses. The problem is he's not getting as many called strikes. The teams are just not chasing the changeup like they used to. They understand what to look for. They understand what's coming. And furthermore, all 5 of his hits that he has allowed this season have come off changeups. I don't know if it's a confidence issue. I don't know if it's just an actual mechanical issue, if the ball is not breaking as much as he's expecting it to break and leaving it into the hitting zone. The point is, it's not been the same Devin Williams. But let me remind you of some stats from last season. Devin Williams got off to an ice-cold start in his first 4 games last year, too. In both last season and this season, he allowed 4 earned runs in his first 4 starts. He had 5 walks last season, 6 walks this season. He only had 5 strikeouts last season. He has 8 strikeouts this season. He allowed 2 homers last season, 0 homers this season. I understand the worry. I understand the concern. What's going wrong with Devin Williams, given, he backed himself into a corner on Tuesday in Baltimore, got out of it. Okay, you forgive him for that. Wednesday, put himself into a corner again and couldn't get out of it. So now you're thinking, okay, twice is odd, but now 3 times, maybe alarm bells go off. But I still got 6 swings and misses today, or yesterday, I should say. The changeup isn't quite what he thinks it is right now. Like I said, it's not, doesn't have the same bite to it. It's not falling like he's expecting it. It's not truly falling off the table. It's more kind of like a soft break right now, really moving arm side on him too. Righties are getting out in front of it. They're getting base hits off of it. They're pulling the changeup, and lefties are letting it travel and seeing it early and letting it drop out of the zone. I mean, 3 walks for him is not like Devin. He also had a wild pitch in yesterday's game too. Maybe the fastball needs to be thrown more. Devin's got a lot to figure out. The point is he didn't forfeit the lead. Trevor Gott saved the day there in the 8th inning, leaving the bases loaded in order to help Josh Hader set up for his 100th career save. We have a mailbag question coming up a little bit later about Devin Williams. I understand the concern. Let's let the sample size get a little bit bigger because this is exactly how he started last year, and he still recovered to be one of the best relievers in baseball. Let's let the man play. Some other notes on the negative side from this weekend. The offense continues to be off to a slow start. A 206 average with runners in scoring position. Willie Adames went 1 for 14 this weekend. Yelich went 1 for 11 this weekend. Only 5 home runs as a team. That is the fewest in the National League. Not great. And 3 of those 5 homers came in 1 game against the Cubs. So there's a lot to figure out there. Could it be weather related? Perhaps. Could it be just the shortened spring? Maybe. But at the same time, you thought you made improvements to this lineup. Maybe they're not a home run hitting lineup, but they're more of a doubles and grinded out type lineup. I mean, I'm not saying I'm expecting Andrew McCutchen to hit 25 homers this year, but he's got 3 doubles. He hasn't hit a home run yet. Rowdy Tellez is off to a great start. He's hitting 296. He's got an 886 OPS. By the way, the Brewers are 37-17 in games that he starts since he arrived last July. Just keep that in mind. They're 20 games over 500 since Rowdy arrived and when he starts. Remember, he missed time last year with a hammy as well. Offensively, there's a lot to be desired. They're hitting 213 as a team, 298 on base, but we're 10 games in. Just like Hunter Renfroe said last week with the runners in scoring position, hey, they're 10 games in. A mind-blowing stat on the pitching side so far this series, and this whole season rather, is the inability to get out of innings with 2 outs. The Brewers have allowed 44 runs all season long as a pitching staff. 27 of them have come with 2 outs. That's 61%. Again, 44 runs total allowed. 27 of them have come with 2 outs. That's crazy. More than half of the runs have been scoring with the opponent's back against the wall. That's in a combination of the amount of walks. The Brewers have the second most walks in the National League as a pitching staff. Certainly something we did not expect looking at this team on paper. But we've seen it continue to show its head time and time again in poor games. The walks are just killing the Brewers right now. And a quarter of them, it seems like, have scored so far this year, too. And they're just, it's just so odd because they're not giving up a ton of homers. Yes, Pujols hit a moonshot. Arenado hit a ball off Suter the other day. Edman hit a ball, but they're not giving up a ton of homers. It's like one mistake, and then they lock down for the rest of the game. It's not like you see these slugfest type games where they're hitting 3 home runs as an opponent. We haven't seen that yet. It's just a lack of sharpness so far for the Brewers. And that comes with reps. That's why I'm not worried 10 games in that the team ERA is over 4. That's going to come down. And we saw Corbin Burns and Brandon Woodruff have a much better go-around in their second starts, as did Adrian Hauser. He gets a tough luck loss, over against the Cardinals over this weekend. He pitched great as well. And tonight we'll see Eric Lauer in his second start of the season. So it's still a small sample size, but that's stuff that you're going to highlight as an opponent on the other side and say, hey, they're walking a ton of guys. Be patient. And that's what we saw this weekend with the Cardinals. They were patient. They weren't necessarily walking a ton, but they were working counts. They were working deep into counts. They don't strike out a lot either. And at the end of the day, it's 10 games. It's 10 games. This team was 21-23 last season before winning 95 games. There's time. And I'm going to bring up the Washington Nationals of 2019. I know that's 2019's tough memories for Brewers fans. We know that. Wild card game, Nationals, we know. But they were 19-31, and they went on to win the World Series. That's why I refuse to say, oh, this is the team. This is what we're worried. This is, oh my goodness, this is what they are. No. We're not doing that. We can start talking about this team in June like that. When you have to figure out, okay, what are this team's true glaring weaknesses in June? Because that's when you're going to be looking maybe more aggressively at the trade deadline. Of course, the Willy Adames trade happened in May last year. We know that, but then they added Rowdy Tellez in July. There's a lot to happen. We're in April. It is April 18th. There is a lot still to happen in this season. Some other quick notes from this series. Look, the Cardinals are really good. Nolan Arenado is really good. You don't realize how good he is until when you're watching other games, right? And you see a quick little tweener hopper over toward third, and you're like, oh, boot it. Do something wrong. And then you realize, oh, it's Nolan Arenado over there. He's not going to boot it. He's the best third baseman in baseball. He's the best third baseman of the last 30 years. He's not going to boot it. It's just having that defense. They're a great defense. The Cardinals are going to win games, even if they don't have what you think they have pitching-wise. Even if their pitching isn't great, their defense is going to pick them up, and they have certainly enough power 1 through 5 in this order to make you fear. I mean, that's a darn good lineup. They held Carlson in check. They held Goldschmidt in check. I mean, Carlson and Goldschmidt combined for just going 2 for 35 this weekend. That's 1 and 2 in the order. So that's certainly helpful. Tyler O'Neill bats third. Then you got Arenado fourth, or they can flip that back and forth. And Pujols fifth. It's a darn good lineup. So to get out of this with the 2-2 split, I'm happy. I think Brewers fans should be happy, given they clearly did not have their best this weekend too. So that should get better. But the Cardinals didn't have their best either. It's going to be a fun finish. Let's get to your mailbag. Before we do that, I'm going to tell you about Built Bar. I know Easter was yesterday. Maybe you loaded up on sweets. The peanut butter chocolate eggs, the Reese's, the Peeps, the sugar. Look, if you need a sweet treat, have Built Bar replace all your candy bars. Only 130 calories, 4 grams of sugar, 4 net carbs, and 17 grams of protein. You can compare that to, a regular old candy bar that you may have chomped down yesterday. 240 calories and 30 grams of sugar. Built Bar can be your replacement for that. I mean, the flavors are awesome. They have an entire lineup at Built.com. They got mint brownie, coconut almond, white chocolate cookies and cream. They're coming out with new flavors all the time. If they think a flavor might be good, they'll go ahead and make it. And they know it will be delicious and it will be good for you. They're all about taste. They'll make it taste delicious. They don't make it taste chalky or like a chemical spill. And then they figure out how to make it healthy. They pull it off every single time. We got an offer code for you. Go to Built.com, BUILT. Promo code is LOCKED15, LOCKED15, to get 15% off your order. Again, promo code LOCKED15, 15% off at Built.com. Let's talk about the mailbag. Let's jump into the mailbag. First question refers to Devin Williams, and I halfway answered this already. How much longer is Devin Williams going to be manning the 8th inning? I think indefinitely. Definitely through the month. It's, as I said earlier, he's still getting swings and misses on the changeup, and the changeup has not been on yet. He will make the adjustment needed. The stats are almost identical to his first 4 games of last season. Granted, last season he had some shoulder issues coming out of spring training. This year it's, he was healthy in spring training, so I understand the concern with that. Maybe he's just a slow starter. He's still very, very young as a big leaguer. So probably just a slow starter. I'm going to let him continue to have the 8th inning, because if you take him out of the 8th inning, he doesn't seem like the type of guy, given this structured role he's had since 2020, that would enjoy coming in with runners on base. Traffic is not his friend. So if you take him out of the 8th, that creates a whole ripple effect of, okay, well, Boxberger will then probably have the 8th. So then does that mean Jake Cousins has the 7th? Is Devin Williams is situational? But what happens if Devin Williams doesn't get it done? Or what happens if Jake Cousins doesn't get it? Let it be. 10 games in. It's off to a slow start, I know. But he's the 8th inning guy indefinitely. Next question. Is Josh Hader refusing to pitch more than 1 inning? I've heard things about arbitration hearings. I was not in those arbitration hearings, obviously. I do not know what was said. But I do know that Craig Counsell is a supporter of this 1 inning outing role that Hader is in as a closer. And that's at least what he says publicly. This was set in stone heading into last season. We knew that Josh Hader was only going to be a 1 inning guy all of last season. And they proved that. He only went 1 inning. They feel for 1. It makes him more effective. It keeps him fresher. It keeps his stuff sharp. 2, it keeps him available for more games, because maybe you have to take more days off after going 5 or 6 outs. And I know you can sit here and say, oh, these guys are so pampered. They don't know how to pitch on no days. They're not like my guys in the 70s and 80s. You're not wrong by that, but it's also not fair to compare Josh Hader to the different arms of the 70s and 80s that were throwing 6 out saves, 9 out saves. It was a different era, and not everybody was throwing 98-mile-an-hour sinkers with a 89-mile-an-hour slider hammer to halfway rotating his entire body. Okay, we've learned a lot. And those careers were a lot shorter than Josh Hader's, as he's currently in arbitration. Josh Hader will continue to work 1 inning at a time. I think it's his most effective. Not everybody is a Liam Hendricks freak, okay? Liam can work 5-6 outs. Remember in the 2020 playoffs when he was still with the A's against the White Sox? He was their best pitcher, including starters. I mean, him and Chris Bassett were the best pitchers, and they had him get 2+ innings in the playoffs against the White Sox. So not everybody's a Liam Hendricks. Josh Hader is doing his role, and he's doing it well. And he's got 100 career saves under his belt. I don't know how much you can be critical of him at this point right now. Next question. This is a question I got over Twitter. Reminder, you can always tweet me questions throughout the week, and I will answer them here on the show on Mondays. Tyrone or Lorenzo, who does the defensive metrics favor in center field? Quick little synopsis on defensive advanced metrics in center field, and for most defensive metrics. You may have heard of UZR or defensive runs saved. UZR is really tough, especially for outfielders, and it's really dependent on the position. UZR is decent for third baseman and shortstops, terrible for first baseman, terrible for catchers, and pretty bad for corner outfielders. And outs above average and defensive runs saved, those are counting stats, meaning the more appearances you have, the advantage you will have, at least to the naked eye, to the rest of the field. So Lorenzo Cain has obviously played more innings in center field than Tyrone Taylor has. Does that mean he's automatically a better center fielder than Tyrone just because he has more outs above average than Tyrone? Not necessarily. But in this case, Lorenzo has the advantage just slightly. 5 outs above average last season in center field for the Brewers. He missed a lot of time, though. Keep that in mind. Jackie Bradley Jr. had to play a lot of center field last season for the Brewers. But even just a few years ago, he had 18 outs above average. And I know it's been a few years. He's 36 years old now. Just by an edge. And the point is this. Lorenzo is an above-average defensive center fielder, still to this day. Tyrone is not a bad center fielder. He is roughly, according to the metrics, a league average to slightly above league average defensive center fielder. That's where it shakes out to. Whose bat would you rather have in the lineup? Because on paper, while Cain has a slight advantage with the defensive metrics, Tyrone probably has the advantage as far as power goes. So that's where the give and take comes. The downside is they're both right-handed, so it's not like you can platoon them. So that's a good question there from earlier this week. Next one came on a lighthearted note, that what do you think of the new on-base celebration for the Brewers? I don't know. I mean, I'm not a huge fan of it personally, but I'm also not in the clubhouse, so who cares what I think? Let the guys have fun. I'm not personally in favor of, kids looking it up on Urban Dictionary, but it is what it is. We'll see if it lasts a whole year. I don't know if it'll last the whole year, but I understand why getting rid of Claws Up, because, Manny Piña's gone, and he's the guy who created Claws Up, so they had to come up with something new. Maybe that's what they came up with for now. Maybe it'll change eventually, but we'll see. Not a huge fan, but it's their call, not mine. Who cares what I think? The next question comes saying, why does Freddy struggle early? And there's actually numbers to support this. Why does Freddy Peralta seem to struggle early in his starts? Obviously, he gave up the 6 runs in the first 2 innings on Friday against the Cardinals. In his career, he has an 8.72 ERA in the first inning. That is more than double his ERA than any other inning in his career. That is his career split, 8.72 in the first inning. You talk to any starting pitcher, the first inning's always the hardest to get out of. But for a pitcher like Freddy, who relies A, so much on the swing and miss, and B, feel and how much his pitches move a ton. So for one, hitters might be more patient the first time through the order. They've drawn 32 first inning walks against him as well. They might be more patient against him because, one, they want to see how his stuff is breaking, what it looks like, what it's like coming out of his hand, and 2, for Freddy, understanding what he has in his bag that day. And he's such a feel-oriented pitcher. He's not really a guy that's diving into the charts. He has a game plan, don't get me wrong, but he feels what he has for the day and tries to build off of that as the start goes along. So that's why I think he struggles so much in the first inning and being a slow starter. Look, any starter is going to have trouble in the first. You talk to anybody, get out of the first and you're off. And you're off smooth sailing from that. Freddy's numbers are not great in the first. Also 13 homers allowed in the first inning. The feel just takes a little bit of time to develop, it seems, for him. So those are a few really good mailbag questions. I appreciate everybody who sends them in. You can send them in during the week as well, at Locked On Brewers or myself, at Dom_Cotroneo, and I'll make sure to save it, and we'll get to it here on the Monday episodes of the podcast. All right, as we wrap up this episode, let's go ahead and look ahead to this week. The Pirates are coming to town to close out this first homestand of the season. A 6:40 first pitch tonight. It'll be Zach Thompson against Eric Lauer. Lauer making his second start of the season. Tomorrow, also a 6:40 start. JT Brubaker against Corbin Burns, his first home start of 2022. And finally, a Wednesday day game at 12:40 against the Pirates. That'll be Mitch Keller against Brandon Woodruff. And all 3 of those games can be found on Bally Sports Wisconsin. Thursday is the first off day of the season for the Brewers as they head out to Philadelphia to have a 3-game tilt with the Phillies. A 6:05 local start on Friday, so 6:05 Central on Friday. Saturday's a day game at 3:05, early afternoon at 3:05 on Saturday against the Phillies. And then Sunday Night Baseball on Sunday. It's a 6:08 first pitch. Neither team has announced starters for the Phillies and the Brewers coming up this weekend. So the Pirates are in town tonight. See the newly extended Brian Reynolds in Ke'Bryan Hayes here as well. Well, they only bought out the arbitration years for Brian Reynolds, but they just had their longest ever and richest ever extension for Ke'Bryan Hayes in Pirates history. So their left side looks pretty locked down right now with Ke'Bryan Hayes over there. So Pirates, sneaky team offensively. And, of course, the reunion with our sweet prince, Daniel Vogelbach. He is back. He's been batting leadoff for them. He's batted second yesterday. It's going to be good to see Vogie back. But, as Bill Schroeder said on the broadcast yesterday, hey, Vogie, it's good to see you. I hope you go 0 for 12 this weekend. And then you can get hot against somebody else. So that's what's coming ahead this week. Pirates in town tonight, and then go to Philly for the weekend. My name is Dominic Cotroneo. Thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe. You can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcast and on YouTube. If you're on Apple Podcasts, drop us a review, a 5-star. It really helps. It goes more than you realize. And also, tell your friends. We're into the season now. I know the Bucks have got some great stuff going on. And if you want to make your second listen Locked On Bucks, by the way, our buddy Cain Pittman does a great job recapping Game 1. NBA playoffs are here. Let's have some fun with it. So thank you again to everybody who's listened. Vinny will be back this week. I promise, guys. Our schedules just haven't really been lining up so far. But Vinny will be back this week. And we'll have some fun bouncing ideas back and forth off of each other. My name is Dominic Cotroneo. Thank you again for making us your first listen of the day. We'll be back tomorrow for your only daily podcast for your Milwaukee Brewers. This has been Locked On Brewers. Until next time, keep on swinging.
You are Locked On Brewers, your daily Milwaukee Brewers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.